Vaccine miracle. Australian scientists wipe out cervical cancer. The Sunday Telegraph, Sydney Australian newspaper. Cervical cancer will be eradicated around the globe, with Australia leading the way as the first nation to be totally cancer-free. Wow. Could you imagine if a naturopath or someone into natural health made those claims? They'd be thrown in jail. Scientists will today declare that the human papillomavirus vaccine, developed by Australian scientists to stop the cancer-causing virus in its tracks, will completely wipe out the disease. The breakthrough being compared to the success of the anti-polio campaign of the 1950s. Well, did they really wipe out polio? Or did they just rename it to other autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid, lupus, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, celiac, just to name some? Right now there are over 80 autoimmune diseases. Vax will wipe out cancer. Australia's HPV jab program key to eradicating cervical cancer. The end of cervical cancer is in sight, and Australia is likely to be the first nation free of the killer disease thanks to the groundbreaking human papillomavirus vaccine. As new research reveals, the rate of HPV has dropped from 1 in 5 young Australian women a decade ago to just 1 in 100, leading cervical cancer experts will today announce that the disease is expected to be eradicated worldwide in 30 to 40 years. Is 30 or 40 years really in sight? I'm going to make a prediction. I'm not Nostradamus, but I'm going to make a prediction that in 30 or 40 years, the disease still exists. Yeah, we can come back to this YouTube clip in 30 or 40 years and see if I'm wrong or right. Australia, having developed the vaccine and then led the way with the HPV immunisation program, is forecast to be the first nation regarded as free of cervical cancer, according to the International Papillomavirus Society, which advises the World Health Organization and leads global policy on the disease. That's interesting. HPV is responsible for almost all cervical cancer cases, but because it can take decades for cancer to develop, the full impact of Australia's 9-year immunisation program will take years to filter through. More than 800 Australian women are diagnosed with cervical cancer each year, and about 220 of those die. But future generations will be free of the disease. While survival rates have risen dramatically in many other forms of cancers, none has been eradicated. IPVS member Susan Garland from the Royal Women's Hospital and the University of Melbourne said doctors now had the tools to eradicate cervical cancer and only needed political will and the public's determination to wipe it out. We are forecasting that over the next 30 or 40 years, rates of cervical cancer will drop from around the current 1,000 cases a year in Australia to just a few. Holy crap. So Professor Garland just admitted that it isn't going to be wiped out now in 30 or 40 years. It's just going to be less. The whole story here is miracle vaccine. We're wiping out cancer. It's going to be eradicated. Yet, she's admitting right there. Just a few. You know, I'm not going to read this entire story. You can kind of read there yourself. But why is cancer now an epidemic? I've done other YouTube clips for cancer cures and other things, what could be causing cancer, but really, as I've said before, 50 years ago, it was rare to have cancer. What's happened in the last 50 years for cancer to become an epidemic? I don't think propaganda stories like this are doing anything to cure it.